Maria von Trapp is widely remembered as the spirited singing governess whose life inspired the sound of music, a story full of music, joy, and the triumph of family love. Millions of people know her as the cheerful woman who entered the Von Trapp household and brought happiness to a grieving family. However, what is less well known is the series of hardships and tragedies that shaped her life before she ever became a symbol of music and hope. Her story is far darker and more complex than any movie or musical could capture, beginning from her very birth. Maria was born on a moving train in 1905, while her mother struggled to reach a hospital. Imagine being born in such uncertain circumstances, with the world rushing past as strangers try to help your mother bring you into life. Her first months of existence were overshadowed by tragedy. Her mother, fragile and ill, passed away before Maria's first birthday, leaving the baby to face a world without the comforting presence of her parents. Her father, grief-stricken and unable to care for her, abandoned Maria to the care of relatives. From that moment, her life became a series of struggles for safety, love, and acceptance. The relative who was supposed to raise her, instead of offering comfort, subjected her to harsh punishments, locked her in rooms, and beat her for minor mistakes. These early experiences, though heartbreaking, were critical in shaping the young Maria. She developed a sense of resilience and independence that would later allow her to survive challenges that might have crushed a weaker spirit. By the time she reached her teenage years, Maria had become rebellious and defiant, mocking those around her who prayed, questioning faith, and distancing herself from the religious practices into which she had been born. Her world, full of strict rules and harsh punishments, had taught her that survival required strength, cunning, and an unwillingness to depend on others. Even as she struggled with these hardships, Maria showed early signs of intelligence and determination, qualities that would serve her throughout her life. These early chapters of her life, filled with pain, set the stage for the remarkable transformation that would occur later when she discovered the convent and ultimately found a life dedicated to caring for others, especially the children of the Von Trapp family. Maria's childhood, marked by abandonment and fear, continued to influence her as she grew older. Her father, Karl, never fully recovered from the loss of his wife and remained emotionally distant from Maria. He drifted in and out of her life, leaving her to live with a relative named Fran, whose moods were unpredictable and whose punishments were often cruel. Maria quickly learned that no matter how well she behaved, she could not earn safety or love through obedience alone. At school, she became a troublemaker, skipping classes and pulling pranks, yet somehow still excelling academically. This behavior was not simply mischief. It was a form of resistance and a way to assert control over a life that had given her very little. Each act of rebellion, each laugh at a teacher's scolding, was a small act of empowerment. Even in the face of physical and emotional abuse, Maria found ways to nurture her spirit and preserve her dignity. Her teenage years were also a time of intellectual curiosity and a search for meaning. She rejected the religious beliefs imposed upon her, not out of malice, but because she had learned to distrust authority and question everything in her life. And yet, despite her skepticism, she never stopped seeking purpose. Her education became a sanctuary, a place where she could learn skills, gain independence, and imagine a life beyond the constant struggle of her home. By the time she graduated from Teachers' College in Vienna, Maria had not only acquired formal knowledge, but also a quiet determination to take control of her own life. Her early hardships had taught her the value of resilience and the importance of building a future from her own effort, rather than waiting for others to provide support. This foundation of independence and courage would later prepare her for the extraordinary role she would play in the Von Trapp family, where she would bring order, love, and creativity to a household scarred by loss. Maria's encounter with faith was another turning point in her life, one that would shape her future in unexpected ways. After years of mocking religious practices and rejecting the church, Maria's perspective began to shift when she stepped into a church during her early 20s. She intended to dismiss the sermon she would hear, but instead The words spoke to her in a way she had not anticipated. This moment of spiritual awakening was subtle but profound, opening a door to a sense of purpose that had been missing in her life. She began attending Mass regularly, studying the Bible, and embracing faith in a new, personal way. This newfound devotion eventually led her to the convent at Nonnerg Abbey, where she sought guidance, structure, and a place where she could contribute meaningfully. Life at the convent was disciplined and quiet, yet Maria's restless spirit sometimes clashed with the routines. Her energy, so long suppressed in childhood, found outlets in small acts of rebellion and bursts of joy, but her time at the Abbey also strengthened her character, teaching patience, empathy, and responsibility. The convent became the bridge between her troubled youth and the life she would lead with the von Trapp family. It offered her a chance to apply the lessons learned from hardship to a context of nurturing and service. When Maria was assigned to the von Trapp household in 1926, her life entered a new chapter that combined challenge, growth, and eventual happiness. Initially sent to tutor a sick child, she quickly became involved with the entire family. The children, each carrying the pain of losing their mother, tested her patience and ingenuity. Yet Maria's warmth, creativity, and understanding allowed her to connect with them in ways that restored joy and stability to their home. Her relationship with George von Trapp, the widowed father, evolved gradually. While she initially loved the children rather than their father, the emotional bond she built within the household ultimately paved the way for love and partnership. Maria's entry into the von Trapp family demonstrated her capacity to transform hardship into compassion, using her experiences to create an environment of trust and care. She became a central figure who not only educated the children, but also healed emotional wounds left by tragedy. This role required courage, patience, and resilience, qualities she had cultivated since infancy. Through her life with the von Trapps, Maria proved that her early suffering was not wasted. It became the source of her strength, empathy, and ability to bring light into the lives of those around her. Maria von Trapp's story reminds us that the lives behind famous stories are often far more complex than they appear. Beneath the songs and joyful imagery lies a life shaped by abandonment, abuse, rebellion, and spiritual searching. Each hardship contributed to her growth, allowing her to rise above the challenges she faced and create a legacy of love and resilience. By understanding the darker chapters of her life, we gain a fuller appreciation for her courage, determination, and humanity. The legacy of Maria von Trapp is not simply that of a musical icon, but of a woman who transformed suffering into compassion, forging a family and inspiring millions with her strength and heart. Her story, far darker and richer than any movie could convey, shows that triumph often comes not from an easy life, but from the courage to face adversity and emerge with hope and purpose. Maria von Trapp is remembered by millions around the world as the singing governess whose life inspired the sound of music. She is celebrated for bringing joy, love, and music into a family that had suffered great loss. Yet, the story that most people know from movies, musicals, and songs only scratches the surface. Behind the cheerful songs and idyllic images lies a life shaped by abandonment, abuse, rebellion, and struggle. The reality of Maria's life before the music began is far darker and far more compelling than any fictionalized account. From the very moment of her birth, Maria's life was defined by hardship. She was born in 1905 on a moving train in Austria, while her mother was desperately trying to reach a hospital. The train rattled through the cold night, passengers doing their best to help, as a tiny, fragile life entered the world under uncertain circumstances. 3 days later, Maria was baptized in a Vienna hospital, but the small thread of safety and love that most babies experience at birth was already frayed. Her mother, weakened by illness, passed away before Maria even reached her first birthday. Tuberculosis, an incurable disease at the time, claimed the woman who might have held Maria steady in a frightening world. Her father, Karl von Trapp, was devastated and incapable of caring for her. Instead, he left Maria in the care of relatives, visiting only rarely. These rare visits could not erase the emptiness and confusion that haunted her early years. When her father died in 1914, Maria was still a child, and the fragile connection to her family vanished entirely. The relative tasked with raising Maria, a man named Fran, subjected her to severe punishments and emotional cruelty. His moods shifted unpredictably, and even the smallest mistake, a broken dish, a lost item, could result in hours of being locked away, hunger, or physical beating. Maria quickly learned that good behavior alone could not guarantee safety. She began to resist in her own ways, developing a combination of defiance and cleverness that would serve her later in life. At school, Maria became known as a troublemaker, skipping classes, playing pranks, and laughing at authority figures. Yet, despite these acts of rebellion, she remained intelligent and capable, finishing near the top of her class. Her early hardships fostered independence, resilience, and a refusal to be controlled by forces she could not influence. In a world defined by fear and punishment, Maria's mischievous acts were small victories, a way to reclaim a sense of agency over her own life. As she entered her teenage years, Maria also began to question faith. She mocked classmates who prayed, refused to step inside churches, and repeated the ideas of disbelief she had absorbed from Fran, who often ridiculed religion. Yet, even as she rejected the faith of her childhood, she was searching for purpose. Education became a sanctuary. She saved what she could from small jobs, attended school diligently, and eventually enrolled in a teacher's college in Vienna. Life there was disciplined and challenging, yet Maria discovered a sense of direction and a pathway toward independence. She studied child development, pedagogy, and the skills needed to make a life for herself. The post-World War I world around her was still unstable, with many families struggling economically and emotionally. Yet Maria pushed through, graduating in 1923 with a quiet determination to shape her own future. Her life took another unexpected turn when she stepped into a church one afternoon, initially with the intent to dismiss the sermon she would hear. Instead, the words reached her in a way she had never anticipated. A profound change began inside her, leading her to study the Bible, attend Mass regularly, and embrace faith with a seriousness that surprised even herself. This spiritual awakening eventually led her to the convent at Nonnerg Abbey, where she hoped to find structure, guidance, and purpose. Life in the convent was disciplined and quiet. Daily routines were filled with prayer, study, and responsibilities. Yet Maria's energy and curiosity sometimes clashed with the strict routines, reminding everyone that her spirit had not been tamed despite years of hardship. Still, the Abbey became a place where she could refine her character, learn patience, empathy, and responsibility, and prepare herself for the challenges she would face outside its walls. In 1926, Maria was assigned to the von Trapp household to tutor one of the children who had been recovering from illness. The family had suffered immense loss. George von Trapp, a widowed naval officer who had commanded submarines during World War I, had lost his wife to scarlet fever. 7 children remained in his care, grieving and struggling to adapt to a world without their mother. Maria's task seemed temporary, to provide education, outdoor activity, and companionship to one child. But her impact on the household was immediate and transformative. The children were mischievous and cautious at first, hiding things and playing pranks, testing her patience. Maria, however, responded with warmth, humor, and understanding. She joined their games, listened to their fears, and gradually earned their trust. Long walks in the mountains became opportunities for storytelling and singing, restoring life and laughter to a household that had been quiet and somber for years. As her bond with the children deepened, Maria's relationship with George also evolved. While she initially loved the children rather than their father, her compassion and dedication began to bridge the emotional gap between them. George watched quietly as Maria's energy brought healing and joy to his children. Over time, he recognized that her presence was not only beneficial but essential. Maria's experience of hardship and her ability to adapt, connect, and nurture made her uniquely suited to bring stability and warmth to the von Trapp household. She was not just a tutor, but a guiding presence who helped rebuild a fractured family. Maria's life with the Von Trapps highlights the extraordinary resilience she had developed from early suffering. Each challenge she had faced, abandonment, abuse, rebellion, and spiritual searching, prepared her to transform loss into love. Her story demonstrates that personal growth often arises from struggle, and that empathy and compassion can emerge most strongly from those who have endured pain themselves. Through her influence, the Von Trapp children not only learned academics but also regained a sense of safety, happiness, and identity. Maria's journey from a child locked away in cruel punishment to the heart of a family that thrived on music, love, and mutual care is a testament to the human spirit. Even beyond her time with the Von Trapps, Maria continued to embody resilience and hope. The family would eventually leave Austria in the face of rising political danger, moving to a new country and continuing their musical legacy. Maria, who had known loss from the moment she was born, now had the opportunity to create a life defined not by fear and abandonment, but by courage, creativity, and joy. The legacy of Maria von Trapp reminds us that behind every public image lies a complex, often untold story. While the songs, movies, and musicals celebrate her as a symbol of joy and music, the real story, the darker chapters of her life, reveals the depth of her courage, strength, and humanity. She faced adversity that would have crushed many and emerged not only unbroken but capable of transforming the lives of everyone around her. Maria von Trapp's life teaches an enduring lesson. The presence of hardship does not preclude happiness, but rather can become the foundation for resilience, empathy, and meaningful contribution to the lives of others. Her early experiences of abandonment and cruelty gave her the capacity to nurture and heal, and her spiritual awakening allowed her to find direction and purpose. Through her journey, Maria exemplifies how a person can rise above darkness, transform suffering into strength, and create a legacy that endures far beyond personal pain. The story of Maria von Trapp is therefore not just a tale of music and family. It is a profound narrative of human perseverance, compassion, and the extraordinary power of hope. Everyone knows the cheerful singing governess who inspired the sound of music. But what nobody talks about is the life Maria von Trapp lived before the music began. Her story is darker, more complex, and far more heartbreaking than any movie could show. Music, slow, somber piano. What happened before she entered the Von Trapp household? How did a girl who faced loss, abuse, and abandonment become the strong, loving woman the world would come to admire? Today, we uncover the untold story of Maria von Trapp. Maria was born in 1905 on a moving train in Austria as her mother struggled to reach a hospital. Imagine being born while the world rushes past, surrounded by strangers trying to help. 3 days later, she was baptized in a Vienna hospital, tiny and fragile. Music, gentle but tense strings, her first year was tragic.